أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الصلاة والسلام على رسول الله اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه والتابعين بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. We start in the name of Allah, the most gracious, most merciful. We bear there is no deity worthy worship except Allah, praising glory be to Him. That Muhammad is a seal of messengers. He was sent as a mercy to all mankind. May peace and blessing of Allah be upon him, his family, his companions, and those who followed his path until the day of judgment. I greet you with the greeting of Islam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Peace be upon you all, your brothers and sisters. And Brother Asad Zaman, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Thank you very much for joining us.
Dr. Nazim, see you again.
So thank you. And on this A2Z show. And of course, we wish your wife, inshallah, the best, as I heard that she had been not well. And we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make it easy for her. Inshallah, it will be purifier for her for all their sins, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Almighty, give her, inshallah, a cure. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of those who have been as well ill as well, to give them urgent cure and recovery from their illnesses as well. And for those who passed away, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy upon their soul and give them the highest paradise in highest firdaus in paradise, and of course give their families and friends patience and a great reward. Ameen. Inshallah, we start with our first in the item in the agenda, inshallah, regarding the Friday pulpit, member al-Jumu'ah. I think as this lockdown, therefore most of the Friday congregation has been suspended, but still some mosques are broadcasting their video of a short of a reminder of Friday sermon for those people who listen to it from home, and then they will perform Dhuhr prayer at home as well. Now, what was your today's, and where were you as well, live or through the video to your congregation wherever you are?
Yeah, I was asked to prepare a khutbah for altering a mosque. So I did a 10-minute audio for them, which they broadcast at their normal Jummah time. So again, it was on the topic of RSE, since most parents, they have children in primary and secondary school. So I thought it would be important for the talk that I gave at the mosque to be distributed sort of more widely. And that's why I decided to do it on that. Again, we need to empower parents. What are their rights? The schools are going to be teaching our children that gay relationships are equal to normal relationship between husband and wife. And we need to make sure that our children, when they are taught this, they understand that outside there are many things happening, and people have many different views. But as Muslims, we have our own views, and therefore we don't hate people who have views which are different to ours. No, we don't hate them. We hate the sin, not the sinner. So it's important for our children to know that, we don't discriminate against anyone. We don't hate anyone. But if they're doing things, indulging in behavior, relationships, which go against Islamic values, then, we don't have to accept that. We don't discriminate against them, but we don't also accept a way of life that is contrary to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has advocated for us. So like alcohol, people drink alcohol out there. Alcohol is haram for Muslims. But we don't hate people who drink alcohol. We hate the alcohol. We don't hate the people who drink it. And so people indulge in homosexual relationships, bisexual relationships, and all these other things. We don't hate the person. We hate the action. And therefore, because at the end of the day, that person is Bani Adam. And the children of all children of Adam are our brothers and sisters, whether they are of the same faith or different faith, or have no faith and different ethnicity. At the end of the day, they are still our brothers and sisters, and we should always see them as that. So not hate them and not discriminate against them, but certainly if they are doing certain behaviors and actions which go against the commands of Allah, then we need to make sure that we make that clear that we don't hate the person, but that particular action we don't agree with. We don't agree with it today. We will not agree with it tomorrow. So it's important that our children are made aware of this very, very clearly, because they are being taught it in all schools. It's compulsory now, although the government has delayed making compulsory, but they will be introducing it. It only got delayed because of COVID. It would have been compulsory from September. So yeah, that's the way we need to adopt. I mean, we're living in very difficult times, Dr. Abdul Aziz. You know as well as I do. We can see things happening which we keep saying these are the signs of Akhir Zaman, the end times. And it's not just us saying it. It's interesting. Even Christian preachers are saying it as well. When they look at what's happening in the Middle East, they look at what's happening morally with the situation with Christian Zionism, something we've discussed. We need to discuss in much more detail Christian Zionism. I think we've said we're going to discuss it at some stage in much more detail, because it is important, and that will be a very strong indicator of the end times and the position of Jesus, Isa alayhi salam. And now with Christmas coming, I think we should, maybe in a few weeks' time, have a special session on the Jesus of the Bible and the Jesus of the Quran.
Yes.
Similarities and differences. And I mean, I actually did a interview with the Bishop of Manchester in my sort of TV program that I used to have a couple of years ago. And it's still on YouTube, that interview. And it was a very revealing interview as well, very revealing. So yes, we can have a session on that in a few weeks' time, just to educate our brothers and sisters, Muslims and non-Muslims, about the position, the very high position of Jesus, and of course his mother Mary, Maryam,
Peace be upon her,
who is highly respected in Islam. So yeah, all of these things, we've got plenty to talk about.
And you said, what was your message to the parents regarding,
The message,
just raise awareness about it?
Yeah, the message was, look, the government is going ahead with this syllabus because the conditions in which we are living in are changing rapidly. Society is going downhill, and you do have children who've got two mums and two dads, and children who are becoming transgender, changing their sex, become boy to girl or girl to boy. I mean, this is happening. It may not be happening on a very large level, but it is happening. And therefore, we need to educate our children about what is right and what is wrong, so they don't get confused about these things. They are going to be taught them. But the message also was that, the government is saying one thing, but the schools are doing something else. The government is saying that teachers should teach children not to discriminate against people who are different in any way. But the teachers are going much further and saying, for example, it's okay to be gay and such like, and basically promoting homosexuality and normalizing it. And the government is saying very clearly, look, you don't have to believe that homosexuality is okay, but you shouldn't discriminate against those who are gays or lesbians or what have you. So it's a very different message that the government is giving to what the schools are telling children, and we have to be very, very careful about this. Also, that we have a lot more powers than we realize, and only by engaging with the school and making our feelings very, very clear are the schools going to listen to us and not brainwash our children into believing something that goes against our faith. Because although sexual orientation is a protected characteristic in the Education Act 2010, and the Equalities Act, but also, of course, faith and belief are. And therefore, schools have no right to impose one protected characteristic over another protected characteristic. So schools cannot teach something that goes against your faith. And they are doing that. And the only reason they're getting away with it is because we remain quiet. And so long as we remain quiet, our children are going to come home very, very confused. And some of them, are coming home confused. A friend of mine who's an imam, he told me a few months ago that his 5-year-old son came home telling him that he's allowed to marry another boy. Of course, it's very shocking for a father, and especially imam, to hear his 5-year-old son talking that way. And children, 5 and 6-year-olds coming home, boys are saying to them, mums, I want to dress up as my sister because I've been told it's okay for me to dress like her. And girls who are saying, I want to dress up like a boy because it's okay. Maybe I feel like a boy. And yeah, there's a lot of confusion going on.
But the right of withdrawal is there for parents to exercise, but they have to initiate. Maybe the school will not initiate that, but they should be. Are they aware that they have the right to withdraw as well?
Well, remember, in primary schools, sex education is not compulsory. It's not a statutory requirement. And anything that's not a statutory requirement, which means it's not fard, it's not compulsory, you have a right to withdraw. But of course, teachers don't have to teach that subject because it's not compulsory. They may be encouraged to teach it, but they don't have to teach it. And therefore, there's enough pressure from parents. A lot of head teachers have actually accepted, okay, fine, we won't teach it if you're not happy with it. A relationship and health education are compulsory, but again, they have to be very, very careful about what is being taught in relationship and health education. And parents have a right to request all the material that their children are going to be exposed to. So that's a right that parents have, and teachers must expose or show what material they will be showing their children. And if the parents object on religious grounds that this particular type of thing, we don't like it, we don't accept it, then the school simply has to accept it, and they should not teach it. And if enough parents object, then definitely the school will think twice. When it comes to so in primary schools, only relationship and health education is compulsory, but you must check to see what it will be taught in that and make sure that it's acceptable. In secondary schools, both relationship, health, and sex education are compulsory up to the age of 15. So, but again, whilst formulating and certainly before implementing the syllabus, parents have an absolute right to see what materials are being included, and they have to be consulted. This is an absolute requirement that the government has made clear to all schools. You must consult parents and take their religious and faith views into consideration. Of course, they don't have to listen to the parents, but they have to take them into consideration. And definitely, schools cannot teach something that goes against the faith of the people, which is why it's important for Muslims, Christians, Jews, Hindus, Buddhists, Sikhs, and people of other faiths to come together and form an alliance, because they all believe pretty much in the same thing when it comes to sexual morality and marriage and relationships. So this is really a battle, if you like, between secular liberalism and faith. And we can talk about France. I think we talked about France last time, that there is this battle going on between secular liberalism and faith. And it's going to become more and more difficult, especially if people of faith remain quiet and let the secular liberals just do whatever they want. It's not going to be in anyone's interest to allow the secular liberals to do whatever they want, because they will end up destroying society, quite simply. You feel like a boy, even though you're a girl, fine, we'll help you change your sex. You want to dress up like a girl, even though you're a boy, that's fine, no problem. If you say you feel like a girl, then you can, that's it, that's what you are. If you say you feel like a boy, that means, if I'm a pervert, and I want to go into a woman's toilet, I just have to say, right, I feel like a woman today. That's all. And no one can stop you, this is how crazy this situation is. So, yes, we need to make our parents aware of their rights. And the fact that the government, even though it has introduced this syllabus, which introduces relationships which go against our faith, it has made it clear to the head teachers that they cannot teach our children something that goes against our faith. So there has to be some kind of understanding, and hopefully, with that cooperation between parents and teachers, then our children can be taught something that, on the one hand, obeys the government legislation, but on the other hand, it doesn't go against our faith. Only dialogue and interaction with the school will result in that. If we do nothing, the school will do whatever it wants. Our children are going to end up getting very confused and messed up.
Okay. Right. I think that would be it for that. I think we move to anyway, we cannot escape that topic of COVID-19 and, of course, its effect on the society as a whole. I think there was a lot of reports about its effect on students as well now, and how they have to isolate themselves to be able to go home by the 2nd of December to celebrate Christmas with their parents. And now, of course, same risk is there because they can take it with them or bring it back when they come back, if they are coming back as well. And of course, with the news about this company talking about found COVID-19 vaccine and how they will be doing it and how will be vaccinating people who will be having it first and everything. Now, all these kind of things, talking about COVID-19, how do you see things developing in November? Therefore, they want to reduce the rate of infection and the spread of it, and hopefully December, because by Christmas things can come and because of the celebration of Christmas as well, and it is a very family and social event of the year. Christendom. So therefore, how do you see things developing in November and December?
Well, good news and bad news. The bad news, of course, is that the virus is spreading rapidly. The second spike is getting worse and worse. I think there was about over 500 deaths in the UK yesterday, and at the peak back in, was it April or June, there were about, I think, almost 1,000 deaths. So we're approaching the peak. Even though we have learned a lot about this virus in the last almost year now, and we should be able to tackle it a lot better now than we did then. And the good news, so that's the bad news, that it's spreading throughout Europe. But the good news is that this German company BioNTech with Pfizer, the pharmaceutical company, have come up with a vaccine which they're testing now, which we are told probably in December would be ready. But of course, we're talking about, more testing to make sure there are no side effects. At the same time, they have to make sure that there's enough of it. I mean, some, Western governments are going to be ordering billions of it. And what about the poorer countries? And the nature, because of the very nature of this virus, the Western countries just can't think about themselves, simply because wherever it is, it can spread from there back to the West again. So even if it's in a small village in, I don't know, Africa or Asia or somewhere, and they ignore that village, again, from that one village, it can spread throughout the world again. So that's the way that the richer nations can't ignore poorer nations. And of course, the vaccine has got to be cheap enough for poor countries to be able to afford it. And the Turkish Muslim scientist and his wife who discovered this and who made it, they were saying that it'll be more expensive for the West and it'll be cheaper for the poorer countries. So there won't be just one price for everyone. They're going to make sure that poorer countries can afford it. But of course, these people have to make some, profit themselves. And this Turkish, refugee, sort of child of refugees, who's invented this with his wife. They are now the 12th richest people in Germany. And of course, this is good news for the Turkish community in Germany, because they've always been seen as the weak link in Germany, and they're bringing down the educational level because Turkish people are less educated than the typical Germans, and they shopkeepers and what have you rather than academics. Well, this clearly has lifted the spirits of the Turkish community there in Germany, which is quite large, quite a few million there, and certainly will help to enhance their reputation, inshallah.
Okay, and this BioNTech chief executive Umar Sahin told the Reuters that he was optimistic the immunization effect of the vaccine will last for a year, although that was not certain yet because still all trial, isn't it? Therefore, there isn't what we say. They said maybe 90% is effective, but it's still on trial period. Therefore, we don't know. And do you think that the vaccine should be available for those who have been infected already, or those vulnerable, or first served?
Yeah, it has to be for the most vulnerable first. The young people can be kept basically as the last resort, or the last in the queue. And so the frontline workers and many of them are Muslims, like doctors who are dealing with the public directly, bus drivers, taxi drivers, and of course the elderly. These are the most vulnerable people who are dealing with the public, and those who've got large families as well. And those families come, and of course they can spread it. So I think the Muslim community, Asian community generally, needs to be amongst the priority list because they're the most vulnerable, as well as the elderly. And then the young people, largely they don't suffer from the uh, effects of this. So yes, there's got to be some priority list, definitely.
Okay. Uh, Now, as far as we go, I think about the universities, and today universities in England are to switch to offering degree places on the basis of actual grades rather than predicted ones. The government has announced. He said he wanted all students to be able to choose the best university they can go to once they know their grade. However, students from disadvantaged background are less likely to get the university of their choice anyway. Do you think that the this announcement, first of all, it will be workable because we don't know if the exam will take place if the COVID-19 is still on, and if there is an assessment, they will go about it.
Well, first of all, if Wales has said that they will scrap the exams and it'll be assessment based. England are saying no, exams will simply be 3 weeks later. Now you can't have fairness by operating these two different systems at the same time, because there'll be many Welsh students will be coming to English universities, and they will have come on the basis of assessment.
Mm.
Now I don't know which would be the better way to assess students on the basis of
We mean
assessment.
by the assessment, the teacher assessment, isn't it?
Yes, throughout the year they'll be assessed rather than exam at the end. So basically the teachers will be having an input into that. But definitely, it seems very unfair for uh, either the Welsh or the English students, depending on who prefers exams and who prefers assessment. If there's going to be two different ways of getting the result, but both the students, the Welsh and the English, will be basically applying to the same universities. That just seems very unfair. So the only common sense thing to do is for the English, for Boris Johnson to say England will also abolish the exams and base um, the grades on assessment rather than exams.
And of course, the exams, is it because it's logistically is difficult because of the COVID-19, or it can be done online? It cannot be done online, impossible?
Well, online, of course, you've got cheating. It's very easy to cheat. So it becomes very difficult to get fairness online, especially with exams. How do you stop students from cheating? It's just going to be very, very difficult, if not impossible.
And exams with social distancing in halls.
Well, think about it. Exams are automatically held with social distancing anyway,
Yes,
because they have to be 1.25 meters apart, every student.
right.
So they have to be 1.25, which is your social distancing automatic. So it's not difficult to deal with exams socially distanced. It isn't. I'm holding exams in my college over the last 2-3 weeks, and I can tell you that the students come, we get them, we make sure that those who are at the back, those who are going to finish latest, because some of the exams are shorter, some are longer, they sit at the back, and the ones with the shorter exams, say 1.5 hours, they sit at the front. So there is minimum interaction between them. And when they leave, again, there's social distancing, and everyone wears a mask. Everyone comes in, uses sanitizer, etc. And so you can, it's possible to do that. You just have to be strict about it.
And does the mask has an effect because of oxygen on the brain, everything?
Well, I don't think it has a huge amount of effect. I mean, I've worn a mask. You've worn a mask. I just came back to see my wife in hospital. As soon as you enter the hospital, you have to wear a mask, and I had to walk maybe 400 meters to get to the ward. And I tend to walk quite fast. I don't personally like a mask, but it's not that difficult. And really, it is recommended, especially if you're indoors and quite close to other people, that you do wear a mask, because as you're talking, the virus, if you do have the virus, and you may not have symptoms but be carrying the virus, can travel through your saliva particles. And if as you're talking, it is possible to transfer it to somebody who's close by to you.
And if they set up holes with a 2 meters minimum between each candidate, and then if they have testing kits about temperature and everything, therefore those who have any symptom of the COVID-19 will not be allowed inside the actual exam hall. Do you think some schools and some colleges and schools will try that, or nobody will try it, do you think?
It's possible to conduct it, as I've just said, but what they go for, who knows? You see, the super spreaders, the main spreaders, are parties and pubs, where a lot of people.
Socializing.
Yeah, I mean, when they get together very closely, and there's sweat, and there's it's a closed atmosphere indoors. That's how the main way of spreading it. So if people are in a very controlled environment, like for an exam, it would be a very controlled environment. Like my college is a very controlled environment. People come, they make sure they don't stand next to each other, sanitizers, masks. In that controlled environment, the risk of spreading the virus is minimal, absolutely minimal. It's possible, but minimal.
Is this, I think maybe it's a general question that curriculums and assessment have to be reviewed because of this COVID-19 now, to see maybe there is a different way to deliver a curriculum and different way to assess it with online and all this kind of things.
Well, look, this is where creativity is required. We have a change of circumstances, and therefore those whose job it is to administer the exams, they've got to get their heads together and say, well, is there a better way of doing it? Because at the end of the day, you want to create circumstances which will allow the students to perform their best. So what are those conditions that would not disadvantage students in these conditions? So yeah, certainly next year, the indications are by March, things should have got better, and certainly by the summer. So if that's the case, then perhaps students can go ahead and sit the exams if by the summer things are much better and most people have had the vaccine. Of course, we can discuss whether the vaccine is safe or not,
Hmm.
but certainly, I suppose if we can say, a Muslim couple are, have invented it. But of course, controversial figures like Bill Gates have invested about, is it 55 or 58 million dollars into that company, and it's an RNA-based vaccine. I'm not sure whether any vaccine before has ever been RNA-based because RNA is to do with your DNA, and it affects, it tampers with your DNA. But I've been, from what I was listening to a doctor this morning, who was explaining how it works, and he was explaining that although obviously this is genetic material and it will alter something within your genetic makeup, but it will only affect a particular part of your genome to force it to produce, immunity against the virus.
Right.
But
Okay.
it won't change any other aspect of your genes.
I think that will be updated. I think on a weekly basis because of the news update and everything, and the involvement and the nature of the vaccination and all this. Inshallah, will be reviewed on a weekly basis anyway. The other one, I think, we might go on the Euro news. I think sports, maybe that's a good. Scotland football club and the nation have been qualifying to the Euro 2020, and they will take part in a major men's final for the first time since 1998 after a penalty shootout, I think 5-4, after they draw with Serbia in the playoff. And of course, the final will be played in Wembley on the 12th of July 2020, with other qualifying matches will be playing in many European countries instead of one country as well. And for congratulations, I think, and Scotland, I think they are very happy to be with the final in Euro 2020. Anyway, congratulations to them.
Yes, I'm not someone who follows football too closely, but definitely, you see, what I always find quite surprising, and I admire these small countries like Scotland and Croatia and Ireland, Wales. These have got small populations, and they compete against countries with big populations like England, Germany, France, and they do very well. So that in itself is something to applaud them for. That even though they are small countries, and that means, of course, fewer people are actually playing that sport, but still they can compete at the highest level and win championships, or at least get into finals and stuff. I
All
mean,
right.
even big countries like England. I mean, when was the last time we won the World Cup? 1966. The famous 1966. We've not won it since then.
Yes.
Even though we've got a population of over 60 million. So there we are. Well done,
All right.
Scott.
Okay. I think on the world news, I think still the American election and Trump not conceding yet, and when I was looking to collection and the turnout to the vote, is it by the number of people who have been eligible to vote, or those who have been voted, and those who haven't been registered. Of course, there is a lot of, now he took, I think, some of his grievances have been taken to the high court, I think, in the United States. But some researchers said the electoral participation is one of the three main indicators for democratic performance. However, electoral turnout is declining in most democracies. Moreover, voter turnout varies considerably, both over time and across countries and individuals. This variation is not random, and electoral party seems to be highly unequal and biased in favor of more privileged citizens, those with higher income, greater wealth, and better education, who tend to vote more than those who are less advantaged citizens. And they suggest in this research that this may prevent election to properly perform their three key functions. One, that's what he says, to discipline the elected officials by the threat of not being reappointed, accountability effect. Two, to select competent individual for public office, legitimacy effect. And third is to reflect the preferences of a large spectrum of voters, majority, representativeness effect. Do you think Trump has been punished on those three criteria?
Trump got, I think, 77 million votes, around there. It was a record number of votes that he actually did get. So he's certainly, I'm sure he's looking at that and saying, how could I lose with, having got 77 million votes? Of course, Biden got more, but, we don't know the mechanism. One thing that I read a long time ago, which is a bit of an eye-opener for the whole process of democracy, is that it's not who votes, but who counts the vote that determines who wins. And that is more important that you realize, because who counts the votes, if they're not fair, if unfair means are used, then it doesn't matter how many people vote. The outcome is already predetermined. I remember somebody sending me a clip from one congressional meeting, and one official from these people who make, write the software for the computers that actually count the votes, because it's all computerized. He was asked, is it possible to predetermine who's going to win? He said, of course it is. All you've got to do is tweak the software. So no matter how many votes you put in, if you've already decided who's going to win, you can certainly adjust the software to make sure that a particular party wins. So, as I said, it's not who votes, but who counts the vote.
But there is independent authority which oversee the counting and the election, and there are representatives from both parties, are there, and there is international observers. Do you think all this doesn't count because the computer will do it at the end, and that's the computer will decide?
It's about hacking. That's what I'm talking about. So it doesn't matter who watches the votes. At the end of the day, it's not done manually, I presume. You're talking about millions and millions of votes. So ultimately, they're relying on the computer to tell them who's won, because it's a very complicated situation. You've got thousands of ballots boxes. You've got thousands of places where people are voting. And to keep an eye on, and they have to obviously input all that information, which candidate got how many votes, etc., into the system. But if you're able to hack into that system, then it doesn't matter how many people have voted for which candidate. You've already predetermined who's going to win. Of course, this is why. I mean, there are many ways of trying to predetermine and cheat during elections. And of course, in the 2016 election, there was a lot of talk about the Russians and others trying to influence the voters, both, of course, in this country with the Brexit vote and in the US. So that, this is the new era we're talking about. The Americans have been messing with other countries' elections for decades. This is known, well known. As a superpower, they want to make sure that the government that they like in a particular country, who are pro-American, for example, and will have pro-American policies, they're the ones who win. And they've been doing this for many, many decades. Now the Russians are getting in on the act, and the Americans don't like it. And the British don't like it. And of course, the British have been, all of these countries have been interfering in other countries' internal affairs and determining who wins and who doesn't. When they stop interfering, I think you'll see the world is a very different place, and maybe not as friendly to the certain Western countries as they would like. So that's
going back to United States this year, I think there was a very high number of people who voted by post.
About 100 million.
Yes, therefore, 100 million, therefore that can make a difference, isn't it?
Well, again, if there's some cheating going on, and there was some indication that dead people have been voting as well, and all sorts of things. I mean, this is what our friend Mr. Donald Trump has been complaining about or accusing, and when investigations have been done, they didn't find any cheating. So therefore, they're saying Trump has no basis for saying what he did. I mean, who knows? Maybe Trump realizes that the establishment, and ultimately the establishment, the billionaires, they have the money to basically determine, how things go. And maybe Trump, I mean, this is obviously humiliation for Trump. Very, very, very few, I think, certainly in the last maybe 30 years, very few US presidents have not had 2 terms. He's one of them who's only had 1 term, and that is obviously humiliation for him. And therefore, he obviously doesn't like it. He's not someone who likes to lose, and he will win whatever means. He's not got the most honest history, and a lot of accusations have been made about him, but certainly he's been shocked to find the result hasn't gone his way, and he's not accepting it. But of course, he's going to have to accept it, whether he likes it or not. But I don't know why, we are sort of so concerned about who runs America. Many, many people have said, "Oh, Alhamdulillah, Trump didn't win, and Biden, he's a much nicer person, and therefore, he's won," and people are celebrating. And I'm thinking, they don't understand the American system, because in the American system, the president is not the one who makes the policies. He's like a spokesman, and he just does he says what he's told to say by who are the ones who actually make American foreign policy and domestic policy. It's the multinationals. They are the ones who control America, not the president. And this goes back, decades. That's why there's that famous saying, the economy is stupid. When that's been attributed to Bill Clinton, when somebody asked him, what's the most important issue in these elections? And he just looked at him and said, the economy is stupid, as though it's so obvious that the economy is the most important thing. How could you even ask such a dumb question?
Mm.
So, and who's the economy? It's the multinationals. So they are always going to have a big say in the policies of America. Why? Because they are going to make sure that those policies make sure that the multinationals, remain as powerful as they are. So because they can influence the countries in which they operate, because in many countries, the multinationals make more profit than the GDP of those countries. They have a major impact on especially poorer countries. So they can determine which, who basically runs the country, because of because they're so powerful financially and therefore economically. So ultimately, in small issues, maybe, the president can have some influence, but on major issues, for example, foreign policy and stuff, what does Trump know about foreign policy? There are people who make that foreign policy and just tell him the situation. What does he know about, major, economics? Um, he doesn't. You see, he's just a real estate guy. And from the stuff I've read, not a very successful one either. So it's really, we need to understand that, for example, just take the example of Obama. The first thing he said before even he became president, he said, the first thing I'm going to do is close down Guantanamo Bay. Well, after 8 years, after 2 terms, he still wasn't able to close it down. So there's his power for you. You remember the first thing he said, I'm going to close it down, like in the first week or whatever. After 8 years, he still didn't close it down, even though he wanted to. So he realized very quickly that, there are many other forces at play, and the president has very limited power indeed. So we need to bear that in mind. Ultimately,
Therefore,
yeah.
and do you think that at the end, I think Biden will be going to the White House?
I don't think there's much doubt. Look, you're the president, and one by one, your friends and others start to leave you because they want to move on now, because, the whole system has accepted Biden. So how long are you going to hang on? All he's doing is just ruining his reputation even more. He doesn't have much of a reputation, but whatever he did have, he's wrecking it even more. So it's just humiliating for America. Somebody sent me a message. I think it was Zimbabwe telling America, either you have free and fair elections or we're going to impose sanctions on you. Telling America, because that's what America tells other countries, you see. And now, obviously, the situation is reversed. It's America that's being accused of not having free and fair elections. So yeah, politics is a dirty game, and international politics, again, it's a superpower politics. Is something that we need to understand, and we need to understand who makes the decisions, and it's not the not the president, certainly not in the United States. So small matters, maybe yes, like uh, signing executive orders. I'm going to have the wall. Didn't he say he's going to have the wall? Where's the wall? that's supposed to stop all Mexicans from coming into the US. So, you've got Congress, you've got a pass, you've got various other, powers that have to be pleased before you can pass something. Yes, the president's got executive order and he can just force something through. But for example, foreign policy and military and what have you. The first thing Trump said was when he came into power, I know nothing about foreign policy. Therefore, I'm going to leave it to my military guys, the head of the military. And well, that's what he did. He just left the foreign policy to them. And he would just say to them, okay, tell me what's in the best interest of America, and you do it. And just fill me in. So he simply delegated it because he knows he doesn't know anything about it. See, he was never a politician. People, need to understand he was never a politician. And so many posts he didn't bother filling. He could see the point of them, even though they were important posts that he should have filled. Anyway, that's the
Okay.
state of affairs of America.
All right. I think therefore we just have to follow the news from America. We see how it goes. Anyway, by January we should have the president-elect. Biden should be president, but we will be seeing if there is any changes, as you said.
20th of January.
Yes, the end of January. Therefore, we see how it goes as well. Right. I think we can stop here now. Thank you very much for your contribution, Brother Asad Zaman, and I wish well to your wife as well, and to all those people who have been actually are infected with the virus or are ill as well. And until inshallah we meet again, this is Dr. Abdul Aziz and your guest Asad Zaman on this A2Z show for today. And until I see you again, جزاكم الله خير وشي سبحانك الله وبحمدك نشهد ونستغفرك ونتوب إليك والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله.